So this is where I left off. And anyway, I came here to Vegas for the 30th anniversary of the CEREC. And I think that was, I lose track of time. I think it was 2015. Anyway, all the kit that you can see there was brought out from behind the screen with a lot of lasers and dry ice. You can see that there were 5,000 people there. And the person that bought it was 82. So that's nearly 20 years older than me. Oh, and I've done some fancy slides. And when I was there, this was just an interesting thing. There were lots of different breakout groups. I don't think he was a breakout, he was a main man. And yeah, so follow him. One of the interesting things that he said was that they were finding that periodontally involved loose teeth were lasting longer than implants in the same patients. So he'd done, if he had two similar teeth, he'd treated one and not the other. And so maybe we should be thinking a little bit about implants. It may not be in our benefit, the benefit of our patients' interests. So yeah, don't know where he got that. That's his favorite slide. But this was, actually, I don't think this was, this definitely wasn't there. But I saw this chap in London. He did fantastic work with porcelain, and he had his own lab technician that followed him around. He was extremely keen that silane had to be mixed at the time that you're going to fit the veneer. And I went and said, well, are you sure it has to be mixed? Because I was using Scotch Bond, which had silane in, and they were all staying in fine. So, but what he did say was, whilst he showed fantastic things on the big screen, you should only ever show your patients in a hand mirror, because quite frankly, no one will ever see any closer than you can look into a hand mirror. And if you get that close to someone, it's too late anyway. So yeah, so these are things I must have done with my CEREC. So the thing about this is that the person's teeth, he was about 15. And you think, what can you do? So this is about the BWE chart. So if someone's having erosion, and they come across, a reasonable number of these, but this one was noticeable in that, and I had a failure. So the failure was that the veneer that I fitted, which, was too big, as you would say, but with the Dahl effect, it went down. It went down. He was 15, and but I did have a fracture. But from what I can see, the fracture was still above the dentine, so there's only enamel there. So, and then obviously you can repair it with a bit of composite. But these may well work. But in my view, you'd be better off with a hybrid material rather than with a, Emax. Because I had some problems with the Emax. I think this just shows, before I left, I just rehashed some videos. So I think this is probably how it worked. And as you can see, I didn't do full mouth scans. With a CEREC blue cam, you had to spray powder everywhere. It was hard work. It's a lot easier now. Anyway, and that was it in the milling machine, as you can see. And even there, you can see how already in the dentine, there was a hole there, and that's what happens. So, yeah, so one patient come along and said, well, I'm not happy with my front tooth, it's a bit discolored. We tried polishing, just didn't work out. And so, clearly by this time I'd sort of given up using my furnace, which I then found out was broken. And they said, this is just a hybrid material, again, on the central, on the lower right. You can see, I quickly took a picture and then obviously went. And so this is all hurried stuff just to show the patient. So she was perfectly happy with that. And so the tooth that was treated, the one next to it on the left, that was a crown that I made about 20 years previous of Procera. So that was one of the few private crowns that I did for anybody. But they look good, but you can just see the wear on it. Anyway, yeah, I did these, and I think so. As I said, these aren't great, but so I think just now I can't remember which case this was. So so avoided. I avoided putting the name there, but you can see, and this, it's a bit flat. And I probably could try a bit harder. And I'm not sure if it's the finished product, to be honest. But a lot of this is automated now. So yeah, look, it's like I took it over the decisive edge. And it was interesting just trying to see what the different crown designs were when I was in Vegas. The red bit shows where they're too big. I'm not sure if this is anything else. So I made a few of these, as you can see, and this is how we used to play around with them. I think it's a bit similar now. So the red mark is actually the gingerfish, so you shouldn't worry about that. And then well, obviously I was worried. But then how you adjust the contact points. And this is what's so good about this, is that, it's a lot easier to use than composite. And so these are the cases that I kind of did, is that if someone come in and had broken a tooth, as it happened there, you often see this, that they'd lost like one of the cusps off a premolar. And so I just put some glass ionomer on it, just put a key as well into the existing amalgam, what was left. And it's amazing these amalgams stay in, even though they're not meant to adhere to the tooth. And so you can see I've hardly taken anything tooth away, but you're playing around. It'd be interesting to see what works best. But my own view was that, yeah, I'd try and hold on to as much tooth tissue as possible. But there you can see I've made a shoulder of some description, and but not much else. The joint's really, really good. No one can notice that. And this is so you can do other things. And so this is quite frankly someone, and these posts are particularly good. And I'd referred him to see someone for implants because I didn't do them. And I'm not sure how this is going to show, but you can see I was unable to really take full mouth scans, or rather, I just didn't have the spare hour to do it. I mean, to scan an arch now takes, for some, it takes just about a minute. I mean, obviously, use a little bit more detail around where the pontics are and what have you. But yeah, so this worked really well. I did one that was 4. So when you mill these, they're on a different block. So it's an acrylic block and the temporary. So when I left, someone had a temporary 4-unit bridge in their mouth. And they'd had it, well, they've had it now for 10 years. I'm sure she'd let me know when it breaks. And so these, I think, is probably just an example of what I used to do for teeth that have been, had an endodontically treated teeth. So I used to call it I think, what did I call it? An onlay inlay. No, it might be an onlay inlay. But as you know, if you by making a shoulder, you've got no tooth left. So especially in the posterior region, why try and do something aesthetic when you're at risk of ending with nothing there at all? Unless you want to do an implant, of course, because, yeah, this has got more chance of working. So I was just playing around with them as I went along, trying to work out what I could do, because I couldn't find any details on these. But I used to use, it was 3M Lava Ultimate for nearly all of them in the end. And whilst I had the Emax, I could say, put them through the furnace, I wasn't getting good results. After over a year, I found out the furnace didn't work correctly. So that was something. And I think these are just some cases now that I did. So when I first got the machine, this particular patient, it was falling apart, and he come to see me, and he wasn't keen on treatment. So you can see there that I used a lot of glass ionomer. So the one of interest at first is in the bottom right, the premolar. He came with a tooth, and it literally just fractured off. So there's nothing left of the tooth. And I said, well, this won't work. And I scanned the tooth. Literally, that's all I did, and stuck on. That was a Sirona block, so that was quite early on. Anyway, again, that lasted 10 years. I did no preparation on the tooth. I just scanned it and glued it on and said, this won't last. The one on the left, you can see there's, he had just masses of amalgams that were failing everywhere. So I like glass ionomer. It's just, a bit soft for certain ages. And while it looks like there's a massive decay there, you may have had the same, is that often you take these out and you find out there's no decay. But what I used to do was to remove all the glass ionomer in the end, and then see if you could get a reasonable scan. Obviously, you've got prisms flicking off here and there, you'd remove them. But generally, when I put in a huge glass ionomer, where you're never really quite sure if there's any puncture there or not. I'd remove the final portions with my ultrasonic and then just scan it, having just tidied up the margins a bit. And it's amazing what you could put in there. Yeah, so that like that, I made a crown on that one. So yeah, back in the day, he would have said, "Oh, I'll do an elective endodontic post and a crown." But especially when you've got the abutment teeth, natural teeth, these last really well. And so this one, well, clearly it's got a fracture. It's got a fracture, and it lasted a long time. But you can see, God, look, you can see it's so thin from the radiograph. And I'm not sure if this is the case, but there was one chap I did it for, and in the end, just, look, I'm sorry, mate, but this has had it. I can't do anything with it. The root's broken. I'll have to take the root out. And it's failed. And he said, no, Tony, it hasn't failed. This has lasted 2 years. So yeah, anyway. Oh, and this is that's a lava ultimate. And the inside, the plate aspect, that's got a lot of blue on it. I was just playing around, but you can see I put some staining on it to make it look natural. And they do. I wasn't, it was out of focus because it was me doing it quick, but it was out of focus because, well, I wasn't trying to disguise it. It looked that good. And what's this one? So yeah, that's doing what I said before. I mean, you can see I've only smoothed the surface a bit. From the radiograph, you can see, I think it's that one. Yeah, I'm guessing as quickly as you are. But that's what I would have done. You can see I've taken out the rest of the glass ionomer. I've decided that little bit palatal or lingual cusp. I can't work it out now. I think it even might be buccal, but whatever. You can see the final restoration in place, and they work great. And you're hanging on to more tooth. It's minimal invasive dentistry. And this one's just, quite frankly, this was just rubbish because you can see there's an awful lot of cement there. But to be honest, the guy suffered a little bit with attrition. And he was in his 80s. And I said, oh God, this new thing, I'll try this. And he was keen for it, and he was pleased with the result. I mean, obviously it took a long time, relative terms, if it's just done a composite. And I don't know if it fitted better, but I just didn't cement it on correctly. But the cement's extremely strong as well. So it's very forgiving. And when you think you've got a cement that, works as a filling material, which this does, the Reliax, I think, was originally brought out as a micro composite. And then they found out it wasn't doing what it did. And it's often the case, someone turned around and said, well, why don't we try it as an adhesive? It worked fine. I think that's a repeat. Yeah, it's a repeat, but I did a few of them. I think I'm going the wrong way. Oh, I think I put slides on. I duplicated slides. Yeah. So this was an interesting one, is that this person had a chrome, and well, it doesn't look like a perfect fit when I made the crown, but you can see what I did. Well, you can see the Gutenberg. So when I did scan the image, I also scanned it with a denture in, but obviously the space behind, and somehow managed to get an occlusal rest in the crown and get the clasps to fit. That's not a bad attempt. It's a lot cheaper than making a new denture and a new crown. And yeah, that's a result. So this guy, this wasn't a result, in that he did grind, to say he was a ground his teeth. This doesn't quite put it right, and I can't remember now, but I think the top left is where he fractured off the cusp. So that looks like the buccal cusp. I think it was lower left. I think so, the buccal cusp, and in the end, I just redid it with an Emax, and I don't know if that lasted or not now. And this is just another example of there's hardly any tooth tissue left. And so, yeah, but the crowns are fine, they fitted fine. And this is one where, unfortunately, this was a young lad about 16, 17, who was, he said he wasn't bulimic, he was just did a lot of swishing. So underneath that, a big yellow patches of dentine. And I think what I did was I thought, right, I'll put an Emax on it because that'll be stronger. And, working on the health service, I don't know why I didn't do the two, but I thought, I'll put one through on the furnace and thought, I wonder if I can do a lava on the other one, because, I didn't do any preparation on either of them. I just scanned them. And in fairness, the lava one looked better. I'm not sure if I've got another X-ray. Yeah, so all I know is that the Emax one chipped, and I repaired it with composite. So it chipped sort of on what would be just an incisal area, lump come off. I think the hybrids are better. They were better. When I went to Vegas, they'd stopped doing them. I'd had difficulty getting hold of these lava ultimates, and it's because the Americans were cementing them incorrectly, and so 3M stopped releasing them. And when I was there, you heard one of the lecturers who wasn't a dentist, was materials, saying that they think that these are the Volkskraon being Volkswagen, Volks means people, I think, and it's just basically a quick way of doing a crown, and they last just because they're not as strong as an Emax. All my porcelain bonded crowns are broken now through stress, and I'm gradually getting them replaced. I'm retired now, I shouldn't have any stress, so whatever they put in should last. And this one is the video, I think. Oh yeah, so there we are. So this is what I'm doing at the moment. Is now I've retired, I'm going around care homes trying to encourage people to scan dentures before they get lost. So this denture now is at least 3 years old. So I got it before COVID, and it's actually a scan of a 3D printed denture. And now I'm trying to do the opposite. And yeah, so this is just one that, the guy didn't like the teeth because he could see the margin. And this was on the health service. And so I did these, which, even I don't think they're any good. I think the thing that what you can do now, and I don't think these were, is the blocks come in a variation of colors. So you can have A2, A3, but they're like hybrid colors. So you can get some variation in the color. In the main, most people whose teeth were falling apart tended to be my age or older, and we're just happy to have something there. What I should have done here was a gingival veneer, which would have been even less invasive, because whenever you take a crown off, you're never sure what you'll find underneath. And so this chap had probably had these crowns for about 30 years. I didn't do them, and I'd been seeing him for 30 years. But you see, they were below the gingival margin when they started. But you can see how thick the margin is, but there was no decay under them. And that was one of the things I was never sure, is how big a gap can you get away with when you're fitting these bonded crowns. So I don't know if you still do them, but it was always, if you can get a probe there, you'd have to do something. And generally I would, I'd just put some flowable composite. And this is a gingival veneer, and I didn't do it, but I do think they're very good. Apparently they're quite tricky to do, but that's everything. You just got to find the right lab. And this is just something else. As I did quite a lot of these flexible dentures, and you can see they look pretty decent. They do blend in really well. The problem is if you lose a tooth, you can't add one on. And whilst they're frowned upon, patients love them, and if they can't afford an implant, you don't want to do a bridge. And I think these are extremely good. So I think that might be 20 minutes. So I'll stop and just see what the next slide is. Oh, one of the things was when these come out, I went on a course. I think his name was Jenna, and he was the lab technician or the consultant who did prosthetics at the dental school. And I went to the course to ask about these flexible dentures, because they're very much frowned upon, these small dentures, and also the problems that they could potentially cause. But they hadn't fitted one, and they were asking what I thought. And the same things happened with the scanner. The dental schools had the scanners, never used them. They had ozone, they never used them. They had, everyone has hypochlorite, they never tested it. We've got to do things outside the normal academic area if we're going to progress for ourselves and our patients. Right, so microbial light lead. Right, I'll stop now. Just check what I was thinking.